right, we'll call this meeting to order. Yep. All right, first thing is Robert Sutherland, tax assessor. Anybody got any questions for him, or you?
Surprise, surprise. Yeah, Rob,
I'm doing okay, Mr. Pierce.
how are you?
I'm doing okay, how about you?
Call me Joe. We've known each other a while now. I got involved with a conversation with a solar company.
Okay.
And the conversation came to structuring an agreement. And I said, well, the assessor won't separate out the rented land and make it a separate bill. And he said, oh, I'm really surprised, because everywhere else that I deal, that's what they do. So I'm just wondering if maybe second or third or 10th thought on this process, you might make it easier on a lot of other people by separating out my land that I rent.
Sure. So I think where this conversation left off last time, it's been a bit, so you'll have to forgive me.
Well, let it sit for a while, ferment and so forth, yeah.
Well, generally speaking, we create one tax account per fee parcel. So if the land is owned separately or described separately in a deed as an individual parcel, generally speaking, we assess it as one. I mean, if the solar company or you propose to split that parcel so that you did have a separate actual fee parcel, we could assess it as a separate piece. It just, from both an administrative and I would say potentially legal standpoint, we get a lot of complications by splitting the parcel when it hasn't actually been split. Because we would be issuing an assessment for partial ownership of a piece that isn't separately described.
It is defined and filed in the courthouses. I mean, it's filed in the Cumberland County Registry of Deeds.
You're referring to the lease agreement?
Excuse me?
Are you referring to the lease agreement or?
The lease agreement,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not an instrument of transfer, so.
Yeah, so it is separated out in that sense.
Sure.
I'm trying.
No, fair enough. I mean, that's something I can take a look at. I know that's something Ben was more involved in than I was, so my knowledge on it probably is secondary. So you and I can take some time after this meeting to take a closer look at it. At the very least, my understanding of where things sat and what would be appropriate is how it currently is assessed, but again, I mean, it's been a bit, so if you want, give my office a call and we'll go over it and I'll take a look at your lease agreement again as it's recorded.
Okay, whatever. This is above my head. I don't understand it. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just doing my best here without hiring a lawyer to argue with you. I mean, that seems stupid. But just again and again and again, I'm bumping my head up against, why don't you have a separate tax bill? It comes up on paying my income tax. It comes up, every time I deal with the land, it comes up, well, why don't you have a separate tax bill?
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you a call. I'll harass you in the office.
All right, fair enough. I'll look forward to it.
Okay.
So it sounds like if you get a separate deed for that partial land, you could, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah.
Well, in a sense, I know what I'm saying is that in a sense I do.
Oh, okay.
Because we have filed the lease deed with the court, the Cumberland County.
Yeah, with the registry deeds.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't know what the legal terminology is here to argue it. I mean,
Yeah.
And I don't really want to spend another $1,000 or $2,000 enriching lawyers. I just wish we could do it, just do it.
Now, we got in a little bit of trouble when we went to put my name on the father's deed, and because there's been parcels taken out here and there, but the main deed, the original deed, didn't have those taken out. Could that be a possibility that happened, I mean, or not? You know, the original deed didn't have, like.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The original, land that my grandmother owned.
Yep.
Right, so through the years, I got a piece of land, my sister got a piece of land, the church got a piece of land, but those weren't taken out of that original deed, they were separate deeds. I don't know if that's anything or not. So we have to cost us more to get it all straightened out and get those pieces taken out of the original land. So I don't know.
Yeah, and that's something we can look at. I mean, I think what you're referring to is, getting the deed description rewritten, just because, I mean, oftentimes an attorney will kind of cop out and will say accepting and reserving, and then all the splits and transfers that have happened, prior to, whatever sale we're talking about.
Yeah.
In Joe's case, we're talking about a description of transfer of property rights, but he's talking about leasehold interest as opposed to fee interest, meaning the entire property is transferred to another entity with a separate description.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, for leased property, we don't create separate accounts. We tax it to the owner of the property of record, which is what we're required to do according to the state constitution, regardless of whoever it's leased.
Okay.
I guess, the main question was, I got another one after, but as I'm looking down through the evaluations of the land on your website, and I understand probably some of it's tree growth, this, that, and the other thing, but, the criteria for putting value on just land, is there a criteria you go by, is it a judgment call of, you think this one's worth more than that one?
So what we do is we apply land schedules to assess land more or less uniformly. That doesn't necessarily mean that one parcel and another parcel that are next to each other are linearly going to be assessed the same. Generally speaking, we'll assess a lot for a built site and then also for excess land, and those are both at different rates. Now, where you are in town does affect what schedules are applied to. There are higher schedules applied to properties that are in areas where properties are selling for more. But generally speaking, at the very least, the same methodology is being applied consistently across the board, or should be. I mean, we've encountered instances where we've inherited data where that's not quite right, and we've taken steps to correct that, but more or less we do follow the same methodology for the valuation of property across town.
So how do you decide, even though it might be in an area where things are building, how do you decide if this area is buildable or not? Do you take the resource protection into account? Do you take in road frontage?
We defer to the code office to determine whether or not a lot is buildable. So if the code office makes the determination that a lot is unbuildable, we generally assume it's buildable unless we're informed that it's not.
Okay.
So if we are informed it's unbuildable, then we'll generally assess the land at the excess rate or apply another significant discount.
Okay. Well, I mean, just like some of the discrepancies is, I'll go for mine, that's what I know most about, 68.5 for 30, and you get down to the Carbonell Road, there's actually a gentleman down there that's got 28 acres, he's assessed at 9,500. You got 35 at 76, 30 and a half at 60, which is comparable. 66 acres at 51,400, and that's why you've got to the D's. I didn't go through all the names. Sure. I'm just kind of curious how values put on land.
Are these properties in the same area of town, roughly?
A few of them are in North Baldwin.
Sure. Well, it's hard for me to say without taking a look at what we have on property records for these. But if you have the list, I'm more than happy to go through and make sure that, one, we're assessing them correctly, and if not, we can correct them as appropriate. There have been some issues that have almost overwhelmingly been corrected from the revaluation that KRT put together back in 2020. Again, I mean, my understanding is, generally speaking, they are applied properly and correctly. There probably is a reason why they're not being assessed in a way that's comparable to one another, at least that you've identified. But again, I'm more than happy to take the list and do a deep dive into those.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of curious, you know, just my particular instance, I have, 30, but I've only got 200 feet of frontage to get into it, so the rest is my lot.
Sure. Generally speaking, we don't take frontage, are you talking about road frontage, right?
Yeah. It's not an issue.
As long as it doesn't interfere with the ability to develop the lot. So let's say you can get a build site on the lot, generally speaking, we don't consider it a detriment necessarily. At the very least, not one we can support with market data.
Okay. Now, my next question would be on the, proposed contract, you guys sent us. One of your duties is to meet state's assessment standard ratio. Do you know what that ratio is? Can you share that with me, the state standard ratio?
So, the state requires municipalities to maintain a certified ratio over 70%, meaning that properties are assessed at least 70% of market value or less than 120%. So they have to fall in the range from either 70% to 120. If they fall outside of that range, in theory, the state has certain powers to limit certain reimbursements and things like that. Generally speaking, the state doesn't enforce that, to be fair anyway, but we do maintain those assessing standards because regardless of whatever the enforcement action is from the state, making sure the assessments fall within that range ensure fairer assessments. So part of the way we do that is by making sure our assessment records are accurate. The second is working with vendors like KRT or other revaluation companies to make sure that there's a regular process of reviewing and updating property value.
Okay. Now, as far as like, I just know that, which is common language, but, bear with me, my things don't work like they used to. We'll try it. Monitor real estate trends to determine when fair and equitable adjustments are necessary. Is it a percentage increase that, you know, I know the housing market, somebody comes up with a median increase year over year, is that what you use for formula for that?
So we work with the state oversight departments of main revenue to conduct annual sales studies, and those are done if there's enough information, enough sales to do sales studies on different classes of property throughout town. So be that residential, riverfront, waterfront, urban, suburban, things like that. Basically to make sure that across classes of property, one, that the assessed values fall within that appropriate range of assessments, so the 70 to 120, and also to make sure that they're equitable according to definitions from the state and from the International Association of Assessing Officers. And so there's a number of statistical ways that that's done, and we work with the state to develop those studies. And we do that on an annual basis to make sure it complies with the statute and requirements from the department.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I'm Kevin Minor. We've talked on the line.
Yes.
Sorry, I was mad. So we're going to this valuation. His land is the other. So back in 2020, they split 30 acres, no different. So I assume, I got looking because I bought another piece of land and I noticed that the deeds were correct, but they were marked wrong on the map. I actually own E, he owns D, and I've been paying for D while he's been paying for E. But it seems like over the last 3 years, I've been paying $554 more than him. On the same 30 acres on the same road. And his, like he said, he only has 200 feet of frontage, and I've got 1,000. And it makes no sense, so when I brought that up, they said they just set mine back up higher to what his is. And then I mentioned the other lot I just bought, is around $500, and we pay like 1,100. And they said that's gonna be reassessed, assessed higher too, so now my 25 acres is gonna go from 500 up to about down. And I have no idea why, because they don't drive up, they don't look at it, they just, oh, yeah, map, good. So when you do an abatement, I talked to him about it the other day. So I've got land of friends, 30 acres, same property, but if I put them in the abatement, all you gotta do is raise their taxes up, and pretty soon everyone in town will pay you. So I'm just trying to understand how come there's such a discrepancy there, even just between the two of us, and then the other one that took, same road, it's right across the street from the land I bought.
So one is,
Right.
perspective for you, is evaluated at 68.5, the other one's evaluated at 53.
Yeah, so, a little history on that. So that's what happened back in 2020, as you said. It coincided with the revaluation of KRT. So, we have the same acreage assessed to both parcels, so that's, map 3 lot 24E and map 3 lot 24D. They should, in theory and in practice, have been assessed at the same amount. So, we brought it to our attention, and it turns out that we did have the names swapped, so it shouldn't really matter because they should have been the same assessment anyway. But what KRT ended up doing was applying the old property pricing schedules for excess land to 24E, which was originally assessed to Dale and is now properly assessed, or will, moving forward, properly be assessed to Kevin. In the process of fixing that, the valuation did go up, so that both are now the same at, I believe, $68,500. So, yes, there was an error there. It has been fixed moving forward. Obviously, Kevin is asking for an abatement to bring his down to where yours was, which unfortunately would require the assessors to assess that property improperly, basically, to use the wrong schedules to do so. That said, moving forward, it will be correct, both will be on the same schedules. It's just that there's really two ways you can correct this. One would be, which I would suggest is maybe not the way to approach this, is to reduce one of the assessments so that it uses the incorrect schedule so that they're both the same. The other would be to supplement for the prior year, the one that is wrong, which would be 24E, up to the same amount of $68,500, which the board does not, actually cannot legally do. It's called perfecting an assessment with supplement, which is statutorily improper. So the assessors don't have the option to do that. There is a third option, which is to abate both, supplement to the correct owners. So 24E would go to Kevin, 24D would go to Dale, both at the value of $68,500. That's the other approach, which would make them equal. It just wouldn't result in an abatement.
So just on, you're throwing that 68 around, and, it just seems like a lot, that's like $2,200 an acre compared to what? I mean, can you explain to me how that end of town is cheaper than, I really ain't found anybody more expensive than $2,200 an acre. So what, I mean, what's the difference between that part of town and?
Well, I have to admit, I don't have materials to get into the specifics on this with me. I'm more than happy to answer the board's questions.
I'll get a hold of you.
Let me get a hold of the assessing manual. It has the sales and use to arrive at the schedules, and I can answer that in a way that's a little more informed.
On that part of it, it is the biggest rock pile, and Joe knows, he's doing a bunch of land up North Polo too. and it's the farthest away from any of the services that Malden offers. But I know land in town with 30 acres that we just bought, that's $600 for 30 acres. I ain't give names, because they'll hate me for life, but.
Well,
I mean, and it's nothing but pure sand down here, it's the easiest ground in the world to build on.
well, again, I mean, if you wanna, I'm willing, of course, as the agent, to take a look at whatever information you wanna put forward. If there are severe developmental problems with the land, I mean, I'm more than happy to consider that. But, I mean, I just haven't had that information presented to me as the agent. I'm not, again, trying to be difficult for
Yeah,
anything.
no.
But, yeah, I mean, by all means, provided to me, I'm more than happy to take a look at it. With regards to lot 23 across the street they bought back in January, if you have some indication that the lot can't be developed, I'm more than happy to.
Well, I can tell you it won't be developed, that's the reason I bought it. But I don't know why it would jump just because I bought it, it's raw land, raw land.
Right.
You made it a better neighborhood by being there.
So, yeah.
I just don't understand, I tried to, what my feeling was, is I tried to solve some problems, for my kids later on down the road, and get things straightened out, and all of a sudden I'm just throwing out $100 bills to Cumberland County, to the town. You know what I mean? So it's very aggravating.
Understood, yeah, it's just, the lot was not assessed properly to the knowledge of the assessor's office. If you have something from the code office that says the lot's unbuildable, I'm more than happy to recommend to the board to abate it to the value of excess land which was presented before. It's just, as we understand it, it appears, at least to our knowledge, because we're going to assume so unless proven otherwise, it's a developable piece, and it has been improperly assessed in the past. At the very least, to our knowledge, that may very well be incorrect, we just don't know. And more than happy to react to whatever information, you can provide to us. If you have an opinion from the code officer, or if you have some other documentation, I mean, I'm again, more than happy to take a look.
Yeah, no, I just don't see how it got so screwed up in 2020 that the only 3 properties I've dealt with, all 3 of them are wrong. You know what I mean? I mean, so the assessment we paid for in 2020 sounds like a crock of crap, yeah, it's me.
So you submitted a request to us for an abatement, because you paid
Dale.
His taxes.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand that. You were taxed for his property.
Correct.
Yeah, we don't talk finances, I had no idea what his land was.
I mean, 30/30, we, yeah,
So-
until I went to split it up, this is the only reason I found out, when I went to try to straighten out the names.
Well, I guess we're done talking about that. I want to say, I was the one that kind of instigated you being invited out, because we've got a new contract from you. And, we talked with other selectmen around, and about what they do for assessing, compare prices and whatnot. So we'd like to get on the board a better understanding of what it is that you provide for services, and then what, maybe if you can break out those, what they're costing. So, and I'm gonna go through it real quick here. First is, Cumberland County is our assessing agent, for those of you who don't understand that, which means that we as select board are still the assessors, but we hire some experts to actually come up with the numbers for us and do most of the paperwork. Because assessing is very difficult, and we don't have the expertise, and I don't think I got the time to get it. Cumberland County, say, provides us the numbers, we're the ones who make the final decision, but for the most part, we're gonna rely on them to give us the numbers. So, we've got your contract here, and I was wondering if we could kind of go through it a little bit and talk about the various pieces of it. There's a day-to-day of assessing, something happens to a piece of property, you gotta put a price on it, reassess it, lot splits, whatever. But then there's the thing you have that's called a CAMA. Is that a piece of, software that you rent?
We pay a license
You
for it.
pay a license
an
for
annual
it?
license.
Yeah. And can you explain how that works, what that does, how it gets involved?
Sure. So, we use a piece of software to administer the property assessments for all of our communities, including, Baldwin. It's called Vision Government Solutions. Basically, it is a, software tool to computerize what would otherwise have to be done by hand in order to administer property taxes across the town. So, way back in the stone, before computers, back when they were using, vanilla property cards, those were manually calculated. I used to work for a company that did that. I used to work for Donald Associates, which actually was a service provider here for assessing services back in the county. And you would manually update values every year, basically doing pen and paper math. What the software allows us to do is to store all the information that's used, all the data points on the property, and all the data points for every property across town, and apply computerized schedules in order to price them. So it allows us to conveniently maintain a database of ownership of all the exemptions that are applied throughout town, tree growth, farmland, open space, and of course all the regular pricing calculations that are done. So for all the improvements and then for all built lots and excess land. It's a staple of modern property taxes.
So it's more than just, adjusting prices on the land, it also is a database of all the land.
It is a comprehensive database of everything that we maintain.
And does it get involved when they decide, when we print out the tax bills, does the CAMA apply
So
the mill rates and stuff, or?
the actual tax bills are generated, at least in Baldwin, in a program called Trio.
Okay.
But what happens is we prepare the tax rolls in Vision Government Solutions. We then export that information. I work with Deb to bring these into collection records that are then used to generate the bills that are collected in town.
So one of the things that Dale was talking about, and I was curious of whether CAMA gets involved, so we talked about doing the, annually, that, their sales information is available, and, does that somehow get cranked into the valuation of everybody's property using CAMA?
So on a year-to-year basis, not necessarily. We use the sale information to determine the quality of the assessments as they sit. And again, we work with the state to develop sales studies to do that. What that informs us of and allows us to advise the Board of Assessors to do is to determine when that system is starting to not meet the requirements of state and industry practice, basically, and then to work with a third-party vendor, like a revaluation company, to work with the town to update those values again.
I'm getting to the question here, and people ask is, how come my assessment went up $100 this year over the year before when nothing else has happened? And I would just, my interpretation always was that, well, it's just the overall market value of the property drifted up.
Sure. Well, if they're talking about their tax bills, it's because the mill rate generally goes up.
I don't think so. I mean, I can go into the vision card and look and see on my property that it's assessed at $1,000 more than the year before, and it's not the mill rate issue.
If the property's in tree growth or farmland, then I have to admit, I don't know the specifics. Generally speaking, we change property record values, if the property is in occurring programs in tree growth, open space, farmland.
Yeah.
Those are affected by state rates that get published, and also by the certified ratio of the town. The other is if there's been work done to the property or some other data correction or change has been made that affects the valuation. So,
So Dale talked about the changing market value, so I think this last year we were assessed at 76%. Traditionally, we've been closer to 100, drifted closely around 100. And so, how does that correct itself, or does it correct itself?
So, one of the difficulties has been that the real estate market has changed a lot over the last 5 years. Prior to that, especially out in this portion of Cumberland County, the market was relatively stable for quite some time, before COVID, basically. And so when those assessments were created during the last revale in 2013, they stayed relatively stable during that time. Your property values weren't shifting until they started to, towards the end of the last decade, which is when the town contracted with KRT to do a revale, because the assessments weren't keeping up with what market value was. Yes, the municipality now is certified at 76% last year. That percentage is going to continue to decrease, although probably at a slower rate than it has. But it is true that the town probably will want to look at contracting some services, at the very least to do a market update, if not a reevaluation. So that's something that a number of the firms that do that sort of work provide. They will take a look at the sales data and basically recalibrate those schedules to comply with market value.
So, you said doing a market update, which is a kind of a partial.
Yeah, it's kind of like doing a reevaluation, but they're not inspecting the property. They're only, or I should correct myself, they're only inspecting the properties that have recently sold, just to make sure that that information is correct, before using those generalizations across the properties.
So again, then how does that impact everybody's evaluation?
So
everybody's load up as a result?
Well, they'll go to market value. I mean, again, we're working across averages, so,
Right.
If on average your typical property is assessed at 76% of market value, your average property will go up to 100%, so it'll increase, whatever percentage it would be to go up to 100%.
So have you done any market reassessments for Baldwin in the last 4 or 5 years?
No, our plan doesn't do revaluations this fall. We administer the tax changes, so if there have been changes to properties, we record it and update the valuations.
Okay, so we've got the CAMA, which is just a basic part of your business, which you can't separate that out, can you? Yeah. Then we've got what's called Vision, which is software, which.
That is, unless it's the online.
So we've got the online portion of the Vision that is posted on a website that people can log into. Now, there's a separate charge for that, right?
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe you can send me what that is later. Oh, I had it somewhere earlier, but I don't see it right here. And then there's mapping. So, you do the maps.
Correct.
Or tax maps. Is that integral to the business, or is that a separate charge?
So that is, it's a critical function of the assessing office, so it has to be done. Some communities will, basically farm that out to a separate vendor. We happen to provide that service.
Yeah. So, it's all part of the single charge for you, the mapping?
Yeah.
The other thing, though, we have is the GIS map, which allows you to pull up the property in close proximity. That's a separate charge.
Yeah, I don't believe that's part of our contract.
Separate charge in the contract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
$1,500.
So we don't need to know exactly what it is today, but we're just trying to sort out what parts of it are. And this is a little bit for our education here, I guess, because, you know, we need to understand what you guys do for us, to understand what it is we don't have to do as a result. And it, I don't know, my impression is it's a lot more complicated than we might believe. So are there any, so we've got the CAMA, the vision access, which is separate, we've got the maps updated, and then we've got the GIS, maps. Are there any other portions of it, or things that are lumps that we can say these are separate bits that you provide?
Well, I mean, we handle the assessing function comprehensively.
Yeah.
If I could put it maybe into some context, having worked for another vendor, O'Donnell and Associates, the level of public interaction I'll be frank, time and care that are given to the individuals assessing functions is considerably less. I mean, they're a for-profit business, and they will basically act accordingly. We treat pretty much all of our assessing clients the same way, so we're providing the same level of service as we would to really any community, which is, again, quite comprehensive. We spend a lot of time doing things like need research for the municipality to make sure that our splits and assessments are accurate, and you know, that can be quite challenging in places like Baldwin, where many of the deed descriptions are quite difficult.
Yeah.
Again, I think it comes down to the level of comprehensiveness of the service that we provide.
Okay, just kind of go through, we have it in here somewhere on the list, which I think is, duties, including but not limited to, you do the final assessment roles, you assist us with abatements in appeals, you prepare all the paperwork and whatnot. Pretty much just present it to us and we decide and vote on it. Complete commitment documents. So when it comes time for the tax commitment, they complete that. Process deed transfers. Oh, the commitment documents, it's a 2 or 3 page thing where we actually fill in
Right,
all
so-
the taxes that we've applied at town meeting.
Right, so that includes giving the board a number of scenarios for things like the tax rate based on what's approved. We put together the entire commitment packet, so that is the assessor certificate warrant, the county return, the information that Deb puts on the bill that breaks down the percentages of, you know, this much to schools, this much is municipal appropriations, this much is county.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything to do with the tax commitment is part of that process.
And so we decide the overlay, which really dials in on the final mill rate. Process deed transfers, lot splits, map changes. This last thing, map changes, I think gets people a little riled up because they don't see the map changing a whole lot. You guys change our tax maps every year?
Yes.
They do?
Yes, yeah, so when the splits have been made, we plot out and then we also depict them on the actual digital tax map, which gets printed and is also part of the GIS system.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I just look at my property and I see I bought it in 2006 or 7, and very shortly thereafter made some adjustments to the boundaries, and they've never changed on the GIS.
So, generally speaking, we're informed of that either by a deed transfer or if a survey is presented to us. So, oftentimes there are issues, but if a survey isn't presented to us because they're not required to be recorded. You know, oftentimes we're not
Okay.
aware, so.
So you review and qualify all exemption applications, so that's the tree growth stuff.
Nope, so that would be homesteads, veterans exemptions.
Tree growth is not an exemption, that's right.
Courteous.
Yeah, so all of those types of exemptions that are available, you review, qualify them.
Correct.
And, yeah. Complete the annual turnaround document for the state of Maine. Can you explain what that is?
Sure, so that's a part of the process that I was describing before, where we work with the state to do sales studies for the municipality every year. That is a document where we basically do a deep dive into pretty much every sale that happens across town to determine whether or not it's an arm's length sale, so whether or not it can be used, at least according to the state's rules, for determining whether or not the assessment system is working correctly. And then we also provide a lot of information that the state uses with us to do those studies. So what kind of neighborhood it's in, whether or not it's rural, urban, waterfront, single family, commercial, things like that.
So then, how does the state use it? Do they use that in the MDR?
Nope, so we complete the MBR. That's
So you come up with the evaluation that's used to determine our share of the school tax?
no, so I think you're thinking of state valuation.
Okay.
That's different.
All right.
So the turnaround document and the MBR, which we complete, are both audited by the state and then are used as part of their fairly complicated process of determining state valuation for each municipality across the board. They have a number of considerations that also have nothing to do with property value that they take into account. It's a fairly arcane process. I have to admit, I'm not totally versed in it, but it's part of their, you know, master plan set of calculations for determining revenue sharing and things like that.
Okay. You create the commitment book and save annual tax maps. Complete the municipal valuation return and other forms. Yep. I've looked at them. You traditionally, or you send a copy to us
Yes.
for us to sign, or do you folks sign it?
So I sign it as your agent. We send it to you for the town's reference because it is useful for doing things like anticipating the tree growth reimbursements, the solar exemption reimbursements, things like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of information in there.
Yes.
You complete the assessing section of the LDI calculation form, what is that, or LD1, what is that?
So LD1 is a I don't even know if it's still an active statute anymore. But we still complete it anyway because it is useful to know. Basically, we have to calculate the growth factor for the municipality. So in years past, I believe it's been stricken off the books now, as Jim doesn't like, but it was used to determine whether or not the budget can be increased a certain percentage
Okay, yeah,
per year.
yeah, that's all I know. All right. Talked about state assessments, standard ratios. Track and report TIF districts, captured real property values if applicable. Yep, we've been through that. Calculate and process tree growth, farmland, open space penalties. I don't know if you guys know, but we used to do that in-house.
You did?
Yeah. Danielle was doing it when I first got here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Calculate and process, attend board of assessment review hearings to defend assessment, abatement, whatnot, exemptions, respond to taxpayer inquiries, which we've done tonight. Work closely with town staff in completing the commitment process and provide the final assessment data to the town to be uploaded to the accounting software, which is our Trio.
Yes.
And then you do the personal property records, exemption applications and stuff. So the 706 requests, when do those go out to everybody that gets assessed personal property?
Yes, so we drive each town that we work in every year, to see if there are new businesses that are advertising. We will do things like check building permits because, let's say there's some change in use or something like that, to identify new businesses. And then we send everyone a request for asset list, so it's 70684. And depending on the type of business, we'll also send them a business equipment tax exemption form, for the equipment that might qualify. And then we receive that, file it, and then, of course, process it, calculate it, and generate bills.
In here somewhere, it indicated that there was one individual at Cumberland County that would be assigned to be the assessing agent of Baldwin. Who is that?
That would be me.
Are you the assessing agent for all the towns?
I am the assessor in all of our communities except for here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
No?
I need to sign this contract sometime, right?
By June 30th.
I noticed that you also put in here the thing about reevaluations and, says in red this time, I guess, I don't know, maybe I highlighted that. In recognition of reevaluation taking place more routinely, town shall assume costs of a third-party reevaluation. We always did that anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, the funds shall be budgeted to cover a third-party review of appeals received by the regional assessment office. So, this means that over and above what you normally do, if somebody, after a reeval, asks to review their reevaluation, that would be a separate cost outside of your contract. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so, just to put it in light of the process, let's say reevaluation happens and somebody disagrees with their valuation. First, there's an informal hearing with the reevaluation company. Afterwards, if they still disagree with that, they would file a request for property tax abatement with the assessors, and so my office would review that application, advise the board on the decision, and then the appellant would have the option, if they so wished, to appeal it further, to say the Board of Assessment Review or to court, or depending on the class of property, perhaps the State Board of Property Tax Review. So the purpose of that clause would be, once these appeals start getting to a higher level of challenge, to bring in basically some professional assistance.
So as long as we're talking to you in-house, then they're okay, but when they go out of house, or your assistants to, help with a review, then that's when this fund would be drawn on.
If I could shed some more light on this.
Sure.
We started the regional assessing program in 2014, and up until, I believe, 2021, we had one town go through a reval. And of that reval, there was a handful of appeals, so it was very manageable. Since 2021, as we emerge out of the pandemic, we have almost done a reval in every single community that we have under the umbrella of the county. As Rod has previously said, valuations have increased countywide, state and Maine-wide, really. And what we're seeing is these towns going through revals, and there are substantial upticks in valuations, which then creates a lot of appeals. And those appeals are being handled by the assessing office, and it's just dragging everything down. It is any capacity that we've had in the regional assessing office has come to a complete halt, and we have staff working 50, 60 hours, weekends, nights, trying to work through all these appeals. And so what we have worked through, and we had a meeting with all the towns, and unfortunately Baldwin was not able to attend the meeting back in November. We have proposed, if a town goes through a revaluation process, the town needs to also assume a third party to help us absorb some of that capacity with those appeals. Hopefully, if you, as the town goes through it, maybe it's not all that bad, and it doesn't cost you all that much. But we do have some larger towns that see significant appeals, and it really is a capacity suck for the office, and really creates a negative feel within the staffing of the office.
It may sound like bad thing, but I think overall, if I get this correctly, it means that we're not subsidizing some other towns' excessive appeals.
Correct. And when a town is going through a reval and really tying up staff, that's taking staff away from eyes on your town for a given year.
Yeah.
And so what we're asking for that town who's zapping the capacity to help us out and pay for some extra capacity to get us through those appeals.
You didn't really put a number on that, though, did you?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's pretty well got it. Good. Thank you. Appreciate you coming out and talking about it. Like I said, I think it's good education for us as the assessors in name, not fact.
Anybody else have any questions for him?
I hate to be one of these troubled people, but at least my name is, so when you're assessing something, you're just talking about our personal property and our house. Are you talking about the road, are you talking about the school system, are you talking about is that at any point part of the evaluation?
So, in the development of the values, the actual assessed values, we use property sales. We work with a company that will use property sales to conduct that analysis. So it's based on what properties are selling for and how much it costs to construct new improvements to whatever the property is. Where things like school budget would come into play are things like the tax rate. So whatever the town has to raise and appropriate in order to pay its burdens, times whatever the valuation of the town is.
Okay, see, I have this, I live on a dirt road, an unhappy person on a dirt road. So even though you try really hard, our river road is not a good road to drive. And where we live, you can't drive up in the pavement, you have to drive off to get there. Or you have to drive down before you can get any pavement. And the guy does come and he breaks the road, blah, blah, blah. Overall, it's just not it's always lumpy, bumpy, and has holes, and it's draining down, and
Washes out.
filling in the marsh, and it's sand, it's going to move.
Sure.
And because if I sell my property and someone comes to look at it during that bad time, they're gonna say, who the hell wants to drive up here to get home? So I think that affects my property value. Although I have a lovely property, mind you, it's still an uncomfortable, and it's not like, okay, I can go down to Cornish, that's fine, or I can go up heading towards Portland, and that's not fine. Either way is not fine. I don't have any, I don't have any pavement for a long time.
You're kind of in the middle of it.
Right. And there's and not that the guy that works the road, he does, let's put it this way, the other guy, if you were to drive by my house, there's a little wall was made out of rock like this big, I picked them up off the road. And if you look at my hill, you'll see all these big rocks on my hill because I would throw them up, then I threw up some more, and then I just made this little wall, and I thought, screw the rest of those rocks. But that makes a difference when you go to look at a house and you're weaving through all these big rocks. You don't have to thank me, I have the rocks, I feel like I got what I needed. But the long and short of it is, the road sucks. And they try. And I'm no road person, but I think that road has to be chewed up and re-smashed down. Because it's like hard clay, whatever you put on there, it slides up. And I say this little story every time I come to this type of thing. And the last time that I worked the road, he did it like a regular road, so it kind of humps in the middle and the water drains off both sides. Well, on River Road, you know that great big outing that goes around this great big tree and it's a big hill and it has that big curve? Well, it's now eating the road. The gutter was made because he made the water flow on that side. It's now eating into the road. Luckily, there's snow and it's covered by the snow. But when the snow's gone, I don't know, but snow kind of like water, and water goes down, and with down water goes sand, and there goes a bigger hole. Just a heads up. I don't think it's safe, because if you go around that curve, you can't see. If you hear someone coming, you don't know where that person is, and they don't know you're there. That could be an uncomfortable problem.
So is this more like a complaint about the road problem, or this, like your taxes should be lower because of that?
Well, I'll take either one.
Okay.
If my road is fixed, I'm paying for what I'm getting.
Okay.
If my road's not fixed, I'm feeling a little bent.
Okay. Well, the problem with Baldwin is, we're a small town. People complain when the taxes go up 10 cents. So in order to fix the road in Baldwin that actually needs to be fixed, I understand the River Road, I'm very familiar with it. There's a lot of other roads like that as well. You got School Street, you got Fremont Avenue, you got,
But I'm
And we do the best we can with the money that we appropriate from the town.
Oh, I don't think I said at all that no one comes over the road. I always had suspicion that if someone kind of rototilled the road deeply and broke it up.
kind of like a garden hole.
Right,
They're
it
on the
has
back
to be
of
sort of
the-
big,
Yeah.
big, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It might not be pavement, but it's hard and nothing's going to stick to it. It just washes off.
And the more you grade, the more rocks come up.
It-
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like a plastic cone being dragged across the road.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's doing a whole lot. And literally, it's rock hard. I'm not saying anyone's doing a bad job, I'm just saying it would need to be like, the word rototill is wrong, but the same process, it needs to be broken up and tamped down. And I'm sure that is way out of the price range.
Well, ideally, we'd love to have every road pristine, but just the reality, except for Joe's River.
It slows them down.
Yeah.
Slows them down. She doesn't have any teenager going by at 80 miles an hour.
Oh, I would, no, I'm too far away, but I will say, I found a car upside down in my driveway. I found a car up over the embankment, crashed into a telephone pole, and when I went up to call CMP and came back down, the car was gone, and the telephone pole was moved about 1/4 of an inch, and they came and redid the pole. I saw just recently a car up on the hill, but there was a state trooper and he was taking care of that. So, people are using the road.
Can I ask your name?
Julia,
Julia?
yes,
Julia who?
Reidy, REIDY, 199. Don't tell my husband I talk.
Well, Julia, I don't know, if you come to the town meetings, there's generally a discussion about River Road. And every year we put money into a reserve account for River Road. This year we're spending, I think it was up to about, a little over $100,000. And this year, we're spending a good portion of it on the bridge to be replaced, because it's being undermined by the stream over the last couple of times that we had the big floods. But the plan is to eventually have it properly replaced, but tilling it up is not the answer. You've got to go through, you've got to tear up the road, put a proper base down, put culverts in wherever they're needed, and there's a number of places, and then put some, pavement on it on top of that. But until you do that, it's gonna be about what it is, and I don't know what the cost of paving a mile of road is, but, you know, it's out of sight. It is out of sight.
Yeah, I just think even, so really, when the guy comes, and God knows he does the best he can, it just goes to the side of the road.
Yeah, I know, and,
You can't fill a hole, it's like a Teflon pan, you can't fill it, because a car comes, and it goes away. It's the same holes over and over
yeah,
again.
they will do that, this pothole will do that.
Rain,
Yeah, we've got that road, we've got people that live up on Saddleback complain all the time,
Ward Hill,
Ward Hill.
Douglas Hill,
Well, those are paved roads.
and the terrible, I came over the Ward Hill Road to come into this, and I won't be going back that way,
Yeah, you know.
and that's paved.
full speed.
There's I tell you a story of horror, but the state will tell you that, within about 7 or 8 years of repaving a road, it's about done. And we're lucky if we repave a road every 20 years. So they go bad, they go pretty far bad, before they get fixed. The nice thing about a dirt road is you can scrape it all back together.
Yes, and like I said, but if someone's gonna leave rocks this big on the road, that's
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah,
Luckily, I'm there to pick them up.
yeah.
But the long and short of it is, that's a waste of money if that rock represents any dirt to help my
I would
road.
advise you though, that if you think that you're paying the same taxes or commensurate with other people with nice roads, talk to Rob. See if you can give you any relief.
Well, and it's not like, at least some people can go up the road, and they're close
Closer
to
to the end,
pavement.
right,
But we're not,
yeah,
it doesn't matter which way we go.
yeah.
And if I come here, I've got a bitch about it. Okay? I mean,
Yep, and,
if you don't hear me, you're gonna think everything is fine, it's not. And I understand that it's probably not ever gonna be doable, but you never know. And I think someone should take a look at the marsh down there, because it's getting filled in with sand, I don't think that's good. And then the culvert, I'm not sure the water's going through there. I mean, I don't think those are astronomical things
yeah.
that could be looked at.
We'll make a note to have Chris check that stuff for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's getting filled in. For years. I really
Which
don't know
marsh
how to
is
stop
that?
talking.
Which marsh is that?
Bottom of the hill, road,
Right, there's the bottom of the hill,
where you go around the corner.
there's the marsh, and then there's a big
When you're
culvert.
gonna straighten the road out?
Yeah, we're gonna straighten it out a little bit, Joe's brother, or was it?
Nephew.
Nephew, gave us
Yeah.
some property to straighten the road, but
So, before you go up the hill, it's like at the base of the hill, and there's a big culvert and the water goes over, but I don't really know how much water is getting through there, because I didn't go down and look and see how full, I mean, it's a big culvert, I mean, I don't know. I just know it's really sandy over there.
Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invite.
Zero.
Talk to you soon.
So, what are we gonna do about Kevin's statement?
Well, I sent you a copy of statute,
Yeah.
Title 36, Part 2, Chapter 105, Paragraph 841. Error or mistake of the assessors, that's us, either upon written application filed within 185 days from the commitment stating the grounds for an abatement, or on our own initiative within 1 year from commitment, may make such reasonable abatement as considered proper to correct any illegality, error, or irregular assessment. If the taxpayer has complied with the 706 thing, he's not gonna get a 706, those are for businesses. That's what I asked about, but that's the thing that says, give me your list of your equipment, so. And then the next paragraph says pretty much the same thing, that the municipal officers can, do an abatement within 3 years from commitment. On our own initiative or upon request. So I think we're within our ability to issue an abatement because we know that there's an error. Kevin has paid Dale's taxes, and it's too much.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't know is which one of these apply. I would think, so you got the 6 months and then the 23, and then the 23, 24, 24, 25. What I would like to do is just, either we get it in-house or you can give us copies of your tax bills and I can go through and see if this meets the 3-year look-back thing, and we'll go back 3 years and
I can leave you
figure out what the
this,
abatement is.
this is from, Debbie gave me this, this is the difference that I paid. I don't know if Sandy put that on the email or not, did she?
Well, I've got something right here, but I'd like to go back and see what the commitment, the 3 years from commitment are. The taxes are committed in whatever.
Oh.
Different years, different commitments, so, you know, what he was talking about is after town meeting and after, the assessing folks have done all their calculations, we go through and do a commitment. And that's where we sign, this is what the mill rate is for this year. And from that date forward, we've got 3 years that we can take care of. And
I understand all that.
I think we could certainly do that. And, hopefully it'll cover all of those.
Yeah, so, the question with Cumberland County assessors is how come they never go and look at anything? They all just sit in the office, like, we never come up once, they just come up and look. I mean, the road is not even filed. You know what I mean? The road is unpassable, the one that he's gonna, in the wintertime, they stop plowing it, my driveway.
Yeah.
And I called, and all I did was, he charged me another $400 or $500 for the one that I just bought. Never come out, never did a damn thing, he just called me on the phone, and said, yeah, that's going up too.
Yeah.
Didn't go look at the property, so what are we paying him for?
Paid for it.
Paid for it. And the tax map is funny, because I've tried to get them, everyone knows the tax map involved is wrong. A lot of them are, they're wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
and they never change them. You look the last 5 years, and you don't see anything different on any of them.
Changed one on my property, made it worse.
There you go. But they don't come out and do anything, that's my thing, they don't come and look.
Well, it's just what we might ask for them to do is to keep a log of when they come out.
Yeah.
We can see actually if they do come out.
Ben came to my house. Ben came to my house
Yeah.
because I complained about the fact that, you know, we got 60 acres and probably more than half of it is a highland. And, you know, Kenny can't even take his tractor up there to get, you know, logs of wood for our fire.
Yeah.
And the driveway looks great, but if you go up the little hill, it's an escarpment, and it just pivots right down straight. it's like, there's no way you're building there. And I've got a, you know, a vernal pool on the property, which you're not supposed to do anything to. And, you know, I question that, I should have probably spoken up when he was here, but I just question how you can say, you know, you got 60 acres and you tax it equally as if they're all the same, but they don't really. I guess they do some changing, but, they just, you know, just like you're saying, that they don't come out.
They don't come out.
And Ben came out, cause I kinda just really.
Well, that was back in
nailed him.
2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was
after-
very
He
nice.
came out and looked at our house.
That's because there was an appeal.
Right, and then he slapped us with review taxes, no such thing, and then that's why our land is valuated 68,000 instead of 53.
Like I say, we can, ask them to keep a log of when they come out. I mean, I'm not prepared to say they don't come out, because I think they do. A couple of years ago, I talked to a gentleman who complained about his valuation, and they actually came out and looked at it. He said, my house is not as big as you think it is, you know. So they
Well, they'll come out on
They'll
a
come out
question
with a
or an
tape
appeal, yeah. You got Ross been to my house when I complained about my
If
evaluation.
you request them to come out,
Right.
they'll come out.
Right.
And they go out and look at, you know, all the new builds.
Yeah. They must have somebody on the payroll that does that,
They were just here a few,
because I remember
it was
meeting
2 or 3
them.
weeks ago, they had,
There's a lady named Liz I met a couple of times.
yeah, she was just out, Liz and Kathy,
Yeah.
and, another lady, they were just out 2 or 3 weeks ago. I enter the permits into Vision and forward them any building plans that, or sketches that we may have. And then they work off from that to come out and, you know, make determination of how far along the projects are and assess it, you know, given the scope of what work's been done.
I just one last statement. I think we should succeed and go to Oxford County. All they're gonna do is they take all the property values from down there and they drive it up here, making our taxes go up, so you have to sell a piece of property, to pay for the taxes, so they can bring in more houses. It's a national, that's what
I
they're
don't know
doing.
how true it is, but I heard a terrible story about the assessor, or maybe assessing agent in Cornish.
That's York.
That's yours.
Cornish is York. We wouldn't want to join York County, because
It's not the county.
can't benefit.
It's not the county, it's, I don't know who's doing it, but,
Oh, the assessors themselves, yeah.
yeah, they're,
I mean, you could see it, like the other hand, you said went up $1,000. You did nothing to it. They just keep driving it until you have to sell a piece,
I don't think.
so they can bring in more houses.
It wasn't the land, it was the house. It might be that I moved a shed or something.
Well, I was gonna say, you've been putting new garages and sheds and things like that there, that could
Pretty
have
active
been
that
it.
way, I know.
Yeah, that was another reason why Ben came out, because he said, you have they appraised my house with a fireplace. I don't have a fireplace. I mean, the chimney's big, but there's no fireplace in there, and all these, they taxed me for all these sheds I didn't even have, you know, so, he came out and adjusted it.
Kevin, I'm having real trouble, because I'm on the planning board and I'm thinking about this housing situation, because we're opposed to allowing more houses if it complies with LD 2003.
Yeah.
But we want more houses if it goes more into the resource protection zone. And then we don't want houses if we have to sell them off in order to pay our taxes.
Yeah.
I'm just,
No,
I just can't
understand
figure all that
it.
out. It's
Right,
all a
no.
big jumble.
Yeah,
And I haven't settled it out. I can't understand it.
I don't think you could.
It's like my.
Thank you. Thank you.
My piece of land is 1.2 acres. I have frontage on 107 and on March Road. There's a house that's just up the road from me on March Road that is newer than my house, and their taxes, they have like 3 acres, and their taxes are lower than mine. Does that make sense?
Well, you shouldn't keep your property so
But
nicely.
you don't, but you don't even have you don't even have another buildable lot, you can't, no, yeah, it's supposed to be 2 acres, I don't see how you got to build on that.
Well, there was a place.
It's a long time ago.
Yes, grandfather.
Yeah.
I get it, okay, thank you. Grandfather,
Yeah.
Grandmother in this case.
yeah.
So, Kevin, to get to your thing, I'll do the research,
Okay, man, no hurry.
but we'll get you some of it.
It's okay.
You heard him, no hurry.
It is what it is, no hurry. I just overpaid the last of Dale's half bill here tonight when I walked in.
At least we won't more close on Dale.
You can look at it that way, or you can look at it the other way. It's like it was, yeah, it's just a different assessment, you see what I'm saying? So it's like a whole,
That's the whole thing, why were they different?
thing.
Why were they different? They were done at the same time, same place, and even going down the road, same road, why was that $400, $500 cheaper?
And that was actually on the whole land that he had. I looked at that when I came in. It was, yeah, that was for more than an acre you bought. That was his land added to it before he bought it.
Right.
So, yeah, it was,
It just makes no sense, I mean, you paid them guys to reevaluate the town, and I checked all 3 properties, all 3 wrong.
Was this due to the rebound? Is this the last rebound we had?
It had to have been because that's when they put up the 60 hit,
Yeah.
30.
I didn't like those guys at all, they're from Massachusetts, so.
No, Ben drove me crazy.
Well, when they come out and they say, can we look in your attic, and there's no, there's no attic.
Yeah.
You know, I live in a modular house, and then it's like, can we look in the basement? Well, there's no basement, I can pull out a piece of the skirt and you can crawl underneath it,
It was like Mary's house, they said that you had a chimney.
Well, no, we have fireplace, yeah, it is, we do have a big chimney in the center of the
Yeah.
house. So it does look that way, but there isn't one, you
Yeah.
know.
That was built
There
back
was a
then.
lot of.
Yeah, we knew we were gonna build, we knew we were gonna burn wood, we knew we were gonna, heat it, heat with wood, we wanted to have a really safe chimney, so it's got brick, airspace, brick, and then, flue. Because we didn't wanna worry about chimney fires.
There was a lot of places that got, that were wrong. There was, even Gary Brown's house, it was, we had to have them come out and redo it, because it was totally wrong,
yeah, they had my square footage all off and everything.
They had him down having a garage, and he didn't have one.
They also, another thing they said too, is that I had the garage, over the garage was finished off.
Uh-huh.
If not finished off, I could tell you, I'd like to finish it off, I think it'd be fun, but
Yeah.
we never have done that.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, he came out,
I
he was
wasn't
pretty
impressed
good about
with
it.
that at all.
I actually got to like him. Well, that I wasn't sure I did.
All right, anything else, Kevin?
I'm good, I mean, I just want to understand
Yeah.
that I make a phone call and then they, without looking and doing nothing, they just say,
Okay.
Charge more.
charge more.
So
So-
teach you to phone people.
That's right.
Right, but they want you, if you was doing a payment, they maybe put in land that's comparable to mine, and all they do is make their land go up. They wouldn't bring mine down,
No.
Just
Yeah.
they just bring theirs up, right,
Yeah.
you know? I know, the guy just bought 30 acres right across from his mom's house. And he's on the main road, and he's paying less in taxes than I am, so.
Yeah.
I've said this several times, is that we hire people to do stuff for us, and it's also to do a quality check, and so in theory, maybe this board should be going through the various records and saying, why this versus that?
You couldn't, I don't think they'd give you an answer anyway.
Well, they might or they might not, but
Because they're an independent company anyways, right?
Doesn't actually work for the county,
They actually work for the county? No.
That's a conflict.
you think?
Well, I'm not that smart, but
Thing is, that when their contract's up every year, every 3 years, we bid it out, and they're the only people that fight at it, so.
So what is it we pay in a year?
I think it's
About 20.
21,000. That's what the new contract is. It's not far off from what other towns.
No, I was just curious.
So,
We did have O'Donnell before them, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they would.
Nobody likes them either.
Right.
Yeah, so
I-
actually, they still do Sebago, and
Yeah.
I was in the store 20 minutes trying to get out of there, everybody's just sitting there.
Isn't that who he works for?
Yeah, I
Isn't
did,
that-
yeah,
yeah.
he did, yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can necessarily, say O'Donnell's does a bad job. They do what you pay for. And, what we discovered early on when, O'Donnell's was doing the assessment for us was that we didn't have a contract. We never had a contract with them. And so when you went to and say, how come you're not getting so-and-so, they'd say, no. And so you didn't have a contract to say, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So we floated a contract and they didn't want to participate anymore.
So that was really good the way you went through that with him, because you pretty much told him, this is what, or you said, this is what you do, so he knows that you know what you.
It's in the contract.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, that's what we did the first time, is we went through and said, this is what we want. You know, it's morphed a little bit over time, but pretty much what we started with.
Isn't Rob supposed to be leaving Cumberland County?
No, he got selected as the head assessor there.
Oh, okay, the job was up and he.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I understand.
They made the county a whole bunch of money, so they wrote it
I think Ben made his share too.
in. Yeah, I think he did too.
I don't think it's necessarily the agent, it's the process.
Yeah. Anything, you got anything, Mary?
No, I don't, thank you for asking.
Joe?
I think what I learned tonight is that I should check my assessment revision a lot.
Make sure they got your lots in the right area, but you could be paying somebody else's.
I think
No, I don't wanna pay your taxes.
But if it's coming in lower, Joe, just shut up. Don't open your mouth.
I think when Kenny and I first built our house here, that we were paying for a different lot, if I remember correctly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then finally, I looked at it, and I said, that isn't right, and he came over and they fixed it.
I think that happened to Dwight too. So his property somehow was being taxed on somebody else's, and he was paying, so he was getting taxed double for his
Yeah.
property.
Oh, wow.
too.
Wow.
So we had to fix that.
No.
Kathy? Mary?
Nope.
You got anything else?
I'm never gonna get a good road, that's.
Well,
That's right.
it could be worse, you know.
Well, I can come here once a year and complain.
Well, you can come here every week. I come every week. I don't complain, though, do I? I just like to know what's going on, you know, I mean, it's like, and it's really been very enlightening to come to these meetings, because, you know, you assume that you've got all this money and that they're exploiting you, and it isn't like that at all. It's like, we have X amount of dollars, and this is how they have to go, and even though you don't like it, you don't have a whole lot of choice, unless you wanna pay more taxes, and I don't.
Right.
And, you know, and I taught schools for 30 years in this district, and whenever they talked about giving teachers a raise, I was not for it, because that meant my taxes would go up. And I always felt like I got enough money as a teacher, I'm not one of those teachers that was always whining about their pay, because I didn't.
We
You can thank me.
need more of you.
Well, you should thank me for that, because
Yeah,
I never
yeah.
did, and I spent a lot of my own salary on things that my kids needed, you know, because it just, I wanted them to have it.
Yeah.
And the kids came out with when they left your class, they came out with knowledge.
Yes. They did, because I didn't, yeah,
The kids
they
today
did.
do
Yeah.
not.
And, you know, I was talking to Kenny the other day about that. When I first started teaching, I had so much freedom to do what I wanted to do. And I integrated everything. And I never taught any of that stupid stuff that they're teaching them now. I taught them think science, read, write, math. That's what I taught.
That's who should it be today.
Yep.
Well, maybe they're looking for a different future, where there's more people that are malleable and charge can dictate
Yeah,
how life will be.
well, maybe. I want them under think.
You got any, Dad? No. Robin? Bob?
Yeah, we want to remind us that while we're here today, the school and all the other selectmen around are attending the school budget meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Where they announce what the, budget will be, or very close to what the budget will be. I don't know, I've never really got a lot of information other than the number, and so I figure we can just get the number
Yeah.
on the slide,
Yeah.
and, maybe I can get that tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
When I was first on the school board, there used to be a public hearing here for the school budget every year.
Really?
Yes. And that just kind of went away.
Well, they do, they do the, public hearing in mass at some point.
But they used to do public information, I'm sorry,
Oh, public
information
information.
meeting.
Yep.
They do it
So who
here
would attend?
and over there. But
Who would attend the public information here? Was
the
it-
school board and the superintendent all showed up.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have the school board to come maybe once a month to let us know what's going on.
Once or twice a year.
Okay. I'll go.
All right.
Anything here? Well, I'm all set. Reminders, we have Tri-Town tomorrow night. We didn't have it last night because of weather. And planning board meeting Thursday night.
Yep.
Uh,
And the church rooms will be open on, Saturday.
Yeah, just will be open on Saturday.
Come on down, Brandon.
I actually perused it while I was down here, I haven't had the chance, you guys got a lot of nice stuff over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never know what's gonna come
You
in.
never know what's
Absolutely
there,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, and I saw on the internet, or Facebook or whatever, that they were talking about possibly having people bring things in to sell. Did I see
No,
that
that was
wrong?
the girl that wanted to do it.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
So she wanted it, but it is a pretty good idea. It's kind of interesting.
Good night.
Thank you guys very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Robin. Bye-bye, have a good night.
Good day, man.
Go to executive session pursuant to one.
Thank you very much.
When I win Mega Millions, I'll pound that road for you.
I have only about 40 more years of.
All right, okay.